If you're over 60, I need you to picture this. It's a quiet evening. You've just opened the fridge, pulled out a plate of last night's dinner, and popped it into the microwave. You hear the familiar hum, smell the warm aroma, and think, perfect. No cooking tonight. But here's the unsettling truth. What you're about to eat could be silently poisoning you, not in a way that gives you instant stomach cramps, but in a way that quietly inflames your blood vessels, disrupts your brain chemistry, or even triggers a stroke, all without you realizing the connection. You see, your body at 70 does not handle food the same way it did at 40. Your immune defenses are slower. Your digestive system is more sensitive. And certain bacteria, toxins, and chemical changes that your younger self could shrug off can now cause serious, even life-threatening harm. What's worse? The most dangerous foods to reheat aren't exotic, imported, or strange. They're everyday staples. Comfort foods you've trusted your whole life. Foods that sit in millions of refrigerators right now. In this video, I'm going to reveal 5 common foods you should never reheat, and the science that proves why. But we're not just talking about food poisoning. We're talking about toxins that can damage your heart, your memory, and your independence. And here's the twist. After I show you the never reheat list, I'll reveal 3 foods you absolutely must reheat if you want to stay safe. I guarantee at least one will surprise you. So before you touch that microwave button again, stay with me until the very end. Your brain, your health, and maybe even your life could depend on it. Number 1, chicken. Let's start with one of the most common leftovers in American kitchens. Chicken is a lean source of protein, easy to prepare in large batches, and a favorite for sandwiches, soups, or quick reheated dinners. But once you understand what happens to chicken between the time it's cooked and the time it's reheated, you may think twice before putting that plate in the microwave. Here's the problem. The moment chicken begins to cool after cooking, its surface becomes a perfect breeding ground for harmful bacteria such as Salmonella and Campylobacter. These bacteria are not rare. They are among the top causes of food poisoning in the United States, and they multiply at an alarming speed, doubling every 20 minutes at room temperature. If your cooked chicken sits out for just 2 hours before refrigeration, the bacterial count can already exceed safe limits many times over. Reheating chicken until it is steaming hot may kill most bacteria, but it cannot destroy the toxins they have already produced. Those toxins are heat-resistant, meaning they remain in the meat even after it's reheated. For older adults whose immune systems and kidneys are often less resilient, these toxins can lead to severe dehydration, kidney stress, and bloodstream infections. There is another hidden danger. Each time chicken is reheated, the protein structure changes. Studies show that these altered proteins can trigger inflammation, which is especially concerning for seniors already dealing with arthritis or heart disease. If you must store cooked chicken, refrigerate it within 1 hour in small, shallow containers to cool it quickly. Consume it within 2 days. Instead of reheating, consider eating it cold in a salad or sandwich. The safest way to enjoy chicken is to prepare only the amount you will eat immediately, because, as we will see in the next section, chicken is not the only familiar food that can quietly turn against you when it's reheated. Number 2, spinach and leafy greens. Spinach, kale, chard. These leafy greens have been praised for decades as some of the most nutrient-rich foods you can eat. They are loaded with vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants that help protect your eyes, bones, and heart. But when it comes to reheating them, especially for older adults, they can quietly change from friend to foe. The danger lies in their natural nitrate content. Nitrates themselves are harmless and even beneficial in fresh greens. Your body uses them to help relax blood vessels and improve circulation. But once leafy greens are cooked and then left to cool, bacteria begin to convert those nitrates into nitrites. If the greens are reheated, the nitrites can transform further into compounds called nitrosamines. The World Health Organization classifies certain nitrosamines as probable carcinogens, meaning they can increase your risk of cancer over time. For seniors, the problem is more immediate. Nitrites also interfere with your blood's ability to carry oxygen. This condition, called methemoglobinemia, can cause fatigue, headaches, dizziness, and in more serious cases, shortness of breath or confusion. In an aging body, especially one with heart or lung problems, a sudden drop in oxygen delivery can be dangerous. I once treated a patient in her late 70s who ate reheated spinach almost every morning. She came in complaining of unusual fatigue and breathlessness. Her oxygen levels were lower than normal, and after reviewing her diet, the connection became clear. Within weeks of stopping the reheated greens, her energy and oxygen readings improved. If you cook leafy greens, the safest approach is to eat them right away. If you must store them, cool them rapidly, refrigerate immediately, and eat them cold within 24 hours. Perhaps blended into a smoothie or tossed into a salad. And while spinach may be the surprising superfood on this list, our next culprit is a simple side dish found in almost every home, but it can quietly set the stage for a night of illness. Number 3, rice. Rice is one of the most trusted staples in kitchens all over the world. It's inexpensive, easy to cook, and pairs well with almost anything. For many older adults, it's a comfort food, part of soups, casseroles, or a simple side dish. But when it comes to leftovers, rice carries a hidden risk that most people have never heard of. The danger doesn't come from the rice itself, but from a microscopic invader called Bacillus cereus. This is a spore-forming bacterium that can survive the heat of cooking. That means when you cook rice, some spores remain. They're harmless at first, but once the rice begins to cool, especially if it sits at room temperature for more than an hour, those spores can wake up, multiply rapidly, and begin producing toxins. Here's the unsettling part. Those toxins are heat resistant. You can reheat the rice until it's steaming, and the bacteria may die, but the toxins they left behind remain intact. And those toxins are what make you sick. There are 2 types. One attacks quickly, often within hours, causing sudden vomiting. The other takes longer, triggering painful diarrhea that can last for days. In younger people, these symptoms are unpleasant but usually pass. In seniors, especially those with heart problems, diabetes, or kidney disease, the dehydration from such an illness can lead to hospitalization, or worse. I remember a retired couple in their 70s who came to the emergency room one July evening. Both had severe vomiting, dizziness, and weakness. It turned out they had reheated rice that had been sitting in a covered pot on the counter all afternoon. They thought heating it again would make it safe. Sadly, it didn't. Both required IV fluids, and the wife developed complications from dehydration that kept her in the hospital for a week. To handle rice safely, you have to act fast. Cool it within 1 hour of cooking. The best way is to spread it out on a large, clean tray so heat escapes quickly. Once it's at room temperature, transfer it to shallow, airtight containers and refrigerate immediately. Keep portions no more than 2 inches thick, so the center cools as quickly as the edges. Never leave rice at room temperature for more than a total of 1 hour. That includes the time it sits on the table during dinner. When you're ready to eat leftover rice, the safest approach is to enjoy it cold in a salad or use it in fried rice, where constant high heat and stirring can help limit bacterial growth. And never reheat rice more than once. Freshly cooked rice is rich in complex carbohydrates for steady energy, along with minerals like manganese and selenium that support your metabolism and immune system. But those benefits can be lost and replaced with serious risk if it's stored or reheated carelessly. And if rice, a simple grain, can cause this much harm without changing its taste or smell, imagine what happens when you reheat a food whose delicate structure transforms the moment it's cooked a second time. Number 4, mushrooms. Mushrooms are one of nature's most fascinating foods. They're neither plant nor animal, yet they offer incredible nutrition. For seniors, they can be a valuable source of vitamin D, selenium, and antioxidants that help support immunity and protect against oxidative stress. They also contain compounds that may benefit brain health, which, as you know, is my lifelong passion. But mushrooms have a unique biological structure that makes them far more fragile than most other vegetables. Once cooked, their proteins and enzymes begin breaking down almost immediately. That breakdown continues during storage, and when mushrooms are reheated, the process accelerates. Here's why that matters. Research from the International Journal of Food Microbiology found that reheated mushrooms can have up to 70% more harmful compounds compared to freshly cooked ones. These compounds can cause digestive discomfort, allergic reactions, and more importantly for seniors, cardiovascular strain. You see, some of these degraded proteins can affect your heart rhythm and blood pressure. In a younger body, these effects are usually mild. But for someone over 60, especially if you're on heart medication or have an irregular heartbeat, the combination can tip you into dangerous territory. I treated a man in his late 70s who loved mushroom omelets. He'd make a large batch of sautéed mushrooms on Sunday and use them in eggs all week, reheating them each morning. Over time, he began noticing palpitations and occasional dizziness, but thought it was just age. One morning, his heartbeat became irregular enough to land him in the emergency room. Blood work and diet history pointed us toward those reheated mushrooms. When he stopped reheating them, his symptoms improved. Why mushrooms deteriorate so quickly? Mushrooms contain a high percentage of water, often over 90%, and their cell walls are delicate. Cooking ruptures those cells, releasing enzymes that begin altering the protein structure right away. When you reheat mushrooms, you're essentially double breaking their structure, which not only changes their flavor, but can create compounds that your body struggles to process. Safe ways to enjoy mushrooms. The best way to enjoy mushrooms is freshly cooked. If you must store them, refrigerate them within 30 minutes of cooking and eat them cold within 24 hours. Perhaps sliced into a salad or blended into a chilled soup. Avoid leaving them at room temperature. They deteriorate faster than most foods. Now let me speak to you directly, not just as a doctor, but as someone who's been in this field for over 30 years, sitting beside patients and families when they've had to face the consequences of what seemed like a harmless choice. If you're watching this right now, I want you to take a moment and think, have you ever eaten reheated mushrooms and later felt off? Maybe an upset stomach, a little dizziness, or your heart racing? At the time, you might not have made the connection. Many people don't, but these subtle signs are your body's early warning system. I'd like you to share your story in the comments below. Have you experienced any strange symptoms after reheating leftovers, mushrooms or otherwise? How do you usually store your cooked vegetables? And when you hear facts like these, do you feel surprised, skeptical, or relieved to finally have an explanation? I read every comment myself, and I often respond with personalized tips. You might even see your story featured in a future video to help others avoid the same mistake. By sharing, you're not just telling your story, you're becoming part of a community that's looking out for each other's health. Healing isn't just about avoiding harm, it's about feeling informed, in control, and supported. And that's exactly why we're here together. Fresh mushrooms, when enjoyed properly, can be a gift to your health. They bring flavor, nutrients, and variety to your meals. But once cooked, they need to be treated like the delicate foods they are, cooled quickly, eaten promptly, and respected for both their benefits and their risks. Because, as we've seen, even something as elegant and earthy as a mushroom can quietly turn against you if handled the wrong way. And if mushrooms, one of the most fragile vegetables, can cause these problems, imagine the risk hiding in a hearty, familiar comfort food that we've all left sitting out more times than we'd like to admit. Number 5, potatoes. Few foods are as comforting as potatoes. Whether mashed, baked, roasted, or fried, they've been a staple on American dinner tables for generations. For older adults, potatoes are often a familiar filling side that feels like home. But when cooked potatoes are stored or reheated incorrectly, they can become one of the most dangerous leftovers in your kitchen. The culprit here is a bacterium called Clostridium botulinum, the same organism responsible for botulism, a rare but potentially life-threatening illness. Potatoes are particularly at risk when they've been cooked, wrapped in foil, and left to sit at room temperature. The foil creates a low-oxygen environment, which is exactly what this bacterium needs to grow. Here's the unsettling truth. Once Clostridium botulinum produces its toxin, reheating won't make the potato safe. That toxin is heat-resistant. You could bake it, microwave it, or fry it again. It doesn't matter. The danger remains. Research from the Journal of Food Protection found that potato dishes left at room temperature for just 4 hours could contain bacterial levels hundreds of times higher than the safe limit. For seniors, the effects can be severe: muscle weakness, difficulty breathing, and in extreme cases, paralysis. Even a mild case can leave you feeling weak for weeks. I remember one patient in his early 80s who was admitted to the hospital after experiencing blurred vision and difficulty swallowing. He had eaten leftover baked potatoes that had been sitting out overnight. It was a frightening situation for him and his family, but fortunately, with prompt treatment, he recovered. Safe handling tips: if you cook potatoes, refrigerate them within 1 hour. Store them in shallow, airtight containers so they cool quickly. Avoid leaving them wrapped in foil, and never store cooked potatoes at room temperature. Eat refrigerated potatoes within 3 days. And if you want to repurpose them, consider using them cold, sliced into a salad, or mashed and pan-fried into fresh potato cakes. It's worth remembering that fresh potatoes are a good source of potassium, vitamin C, and fiber. These nutrients can help manage blood pressure, support your immune system, and aid digestion. But the longer potatoes are stored after cooking, the more these nutrients degrade. So the safest and healthiest way to enjoy them is fresh, in portions you can finish in one sitting. Potatoes are a perfect example of how something familiar and beloved can quietly turn risky with age and time. And while we've now covered the 5 foods you should never reheat, the story doesn't end here, because there are also foods that you absolutely must reheat, not for taste, but for safety. And the first one on that list is a protein that has been at the center of food safety discussions for decades. Number 6, pork. Now that we've covered the foods you should never reheat, let's talk about a few that you must reheat if you want to stay safe, starting with pork. Pork has been a part of the American diet for centuries, from Sunday roasts to pulled pork sandwiches and hearty winter stews. It's flavorful, versatile, and packed with protein. But pork also carries a long history of food safety concerns, especially when it comes to parasites. One in particular, Trichinella spiralis, can cause an illness known as trichinosis. Decades ago, this was far more common, and public health campaigns taught entire generations to cook pork well. Today, improved farming practices have reduced the risk dramatically, but the danger hasn't disappeared entirely. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention still reports cases every year, often traced back to undercooked or improperly reheated pork. Here's why reheating is so important. Even if your pork was cooked properly the first time, storing it incorrectly or eating it cold can allow surviving bacteria like Listeria monocytogenes to multiply. This is especially risky for older adults because Listeria infections can spread quickly to the bloodstream or nervous system, causing confusion, fever, and even meningitis. Studies from the USDA Meat Science Laboratory have shown that reheating pork to an internal temperature of 165 degrees doesn't just make it safe. It can actually improve protein digestibility by over 20%. This means your body absorbs more of the amino acids needed to maintain muscle mass, something every older adult should prioritize. The best way to reheat pork. The key to safe reheating is even, thorough heat. Large cuts of pork should be sliced before reheating so that heat penetrates it all the way through. This prevents the cold center problem you often get when microwaving leftovers. If you do use a microwave, rotate and stir the food halfway through cooking. For best results, reheat in a covered dish with a small amount of broth or water to keep it moist in a conventional oven at 325 degrees until the internal temperature reaches 165 degrees. Ground pork deserves special attention. Because grinding distributes bacteria throughout the meat, there's no safe surface. Every bite must be fully cooked again. The same rule applies here. 165 degrees all the way through. Why pork matters for seniors. Many older adults benefit from including pork in their diet. Lean cuts like tenderloin are rich in high-quality protein, thiamine, selenium, and zinc, nutrients that support muscle strength, immune function, and cognitive health. But the benefits only matter if the pork is safe to eat. An infection from underheated leftovers can lead to severe dehydration, hospitalization, and long recovery times for someone in their 70s or 80s. I'll never forget a retired teacher I treated several years ago. She prided herself on being careful in the kitchen, but one week she ate leftover pork chops straight from the fridge, thinking they were already cooked, so no problem. Within 2 days, she was in the hospital with fever, chills, and confusion from a listeria infection. It took weeks for her to regain her strength. She later told me, "I never imagined that skipping the reheat could do this." Your takeaway: if pork is on your menu, remember this: reheating isn't optional. It's a safety step. Slice it, heat it evenly, and check the temperature. Your future self will thank you. And speaking of hearty, home-cooked foods, there's another type of leftover that might seem harmless, but can hide dangerous bacteria deep inside if you don't reheat it properly. It's warm, comforting, and often shared with family. But if you skip this step, it can send you to the hospital. That's what we'll talk about next. Number 7, leftover soup with meat or vegetables. Few things feel more comforting than a pot of homemade soup simmering on the stove. For many of us, it's a taste of childhood. Chicken noodle when you're sick, beef stew on a cold winter night, vegetable soup after church on Sunday. Soup is nourishing, hydrating, and perfect for making in large batches. But that very convenience is what makes it risky if you don't handle it correctly. The problem begins with how soup is cooled. Large pots hold heat for a surprisingly long time. You might think your soup is safe once you put the pot in the refrigerator, but here's the catch. The outside cools quickly while the center can stay in the danger zone for hours. That danger zone between 40 degree F and 140 degree F is where bacteria thrive. In that warm center, harmful bacteria like Listeria monocytogenes and Clostridium perfringens can multiply rapidly. These bacteria don't just cause stomach upset. In seniors, they can trigger high fever, confusion, and in severe cases, bloodstream infections or sepsis. For someone with a slower immune response, the effects can be life-threatening. I once treated an older gentleman who made a large batch of chicken and vegetable soup every Sunday. He would ladle out a bowl each day, reheating it briefly in the microwave. But because the soup had cooled unevenly after cooking, bacteria had been multiplying deep inside from day one. By the middle of the week, he had severe abdominal pain and fever. The hospital test pointed straight to contaminated leftovers. How to store soup safely. To keep soup safe, you need to cool it quickly and evenly. That means transferring it into shallow containers before refrigerating. If you have a large batch, divide it into smaller portions right away. This ensures that the temperature in the center drops fast enough to stop bacterial growth. Reheating for safety. When it's time to enjoy your leftover soup, reheating isn't about warming it until it's just hot enough to eat. You need to bring it to a rolling boil for at least 1 full minute. This ensures that every part of the soup reaches a temperature high enough to kill harmful bacteria. Microwaving soup in short bursts is risky because it creates cold spots where bacteria can survive. If you do use the microwave, stir thoroughly and heat for long enough to ensure even temperature. Why reheating matters for seniors. Soups often contain starchy ingredients like rice, pasta, or potatoes, and these can ferment slightly during storage, creating compounds that can upset the stomach. Thorough reheating not only kills bacteria, but also restores flavor, aroma, and texture, making the soup as enjoyable as when it was first made. Soup is one of the most healing, heartwarming foods you can share, especially with loved ones. But for older adults, protecting that comfort means taking the extra step to store and reheat it safely. And finally, there's one type of dish where reheating isn't just important, it's essential every single time. Number 8, ground meat dishes. Ground meat, whether it's beef, pork, turkey, or a blend, is a staple in dishes like meatloaf, chili, spaghetti sauce, and casseroles. It's easy to prepare, economical, and versatile. But once it's cooked and stored, ground meat becomes one of the most important foods to reheat properly. Here's why. When you grind meat, any bacteria on the surface are mixed throughout the entire portion. Unlike a whole steak or roast, where bacteria remain mostly on the outside, ground meat has no safe interior. This means that every single bite must reach a safe temperature to protect you. Research from the FDA and the International Association for Food Protection has shown that ground meat dishes stored for more than 24 hours can reach bacterial levels that require high heat to make them safe again. In one study, dishes left at room temperature for just 30 minutes after cooking already exceeded 1 million bacteria per gram. an alarming number for anyone, but especially for seniors. When reheating, aim for an internal temperature of 165 degrees throughout the dish. Stir often, and if it's a thick preparation like chili or meatloaf, slice or break it into smaller pieces so the heat can penetrate evenly. Microwaving without stirring can leave cold spots where bacteria survive. The good news is, when reheated properly, ground meat remains an excellent source of protein, B vitamins, and minerals like iron and zinc, all crucial for maintaining muscle, energy, and brain health as we age. Now that you know which foods to avoid reheating and which ones to reheat without fail, you've taken a powerful step toward protecting your health and independence. Remember, food safety isn't about fear. It's about knowledge, and knowledge gives you control. You can make small, simple changes today that keep your body stronger, your mind clearer, and your days fuller. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by health advice, I want to reassure you, it's never too late to make a change. Every meal is a new opportunity to nourish your body and protect your brain. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. Just begin with one habit: storing and reheating your food safely. Over time, these small decisions add up to big results. I'd like to invite you to watch my next video. This muscle trick could boost memory and fight off brain decline. In it, I'll show you a surprisingly simple physical technique that can strengthen both your body and your brain. And it's gentle enough for anyone over 60. Before you go, tell me in the comments, which tip from today's video surprised you most? And will you be changing any of your leftover habits? I read and replied to as many comments as I can, and your story might be exactly what inspires someone else to make a change. Because here, we're more than just viewers and a host. We're a community, learning, growing, and staying healthier together.